Once upon a time, in a charming little village nestled at the edge of a dense, enchanted forest, there lived a sweet and innocent little girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She earned her name because she always wore a bright red hooded cloak that her grandmother had lovingly crafted for her. Little Red Riding Hood was adored by everyone in the village, and she had a heart as pure as the morning dew. One sunny morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called her into the cozy kitchen. "My dear," her mother said, "your grandmother isn't feeling well. She lives on the other side of the forest, and I would like you to take her this basket of goodies to help her feel better." Little Red Riding Hood's eyes lit up with excitement. "Of course, Mother. I'll go right away." She carefully packed a basket filled with freshly baked bread, a jar of honey, some plump red apples, and a bouquet of wildflowers. Her mother added a little jar of homemade jam and a note for her grandmother. "Now remember," her mother cautioned, "stay on the path through the forest and don't talk to strangers. Be a good girl and go straight to your grandmother's house." Little Red Riding Hood promised to be careful and set off on her journey. As she ventured into the enchanting forest, the birds sang sweet melodies and the trees whispered secrets to her. The dappled sunlight danced on her path, making her feel like she was in a magical world. As she wandered deeper into the forest, Little Red Riding Hood suddenly noticed a curious, talking wolf with shaggy grey fur and gleaming yellow eyes. The wolf approached her with a friendly smile, but a wicked glint in his eye. "Good day, Little Red Riding Hood," he purred. "Where are you off to with such a lovely basket of goodies?" Little Red Riding Hood was a kind and polite girl, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. "I'm on my way to visit my grandmother, who is feeling unwell," she replied cautiously. The cunning wolf's eyes gleamed with mischief. "Oh dear," he said, feigning concern. "That sounds like a long and tiring journey. What's in your basket? Perhaps I can help you carry it." Little Red Riding Hood was innocent and trusting, but she remembered her mother's warning. "Thank you for your offer, but I must go alone. My mother told me not to talk to strangers." The wolf's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Ah, I see. Well then, Little Red Riding Hood, I wish you a safe journey. Farewell." With that, the wolf disappeared into the forest, leaving Little Red Riding Hood to continue on her way. She couldn't help feeling a little uneasy about the encounter, but she brushed it off as nothing more than a passing moment of curiosity. As she walked deeper into the forest, Little Red Riding Hood couldn't help but notice the vibrant colors of the flowers and the gentle rustling of the leaves. She was so enchanted by the beauty around her that she lost track of time. The forest seemed like a magical wonderland, and she felt as if she were in a dream. Meanwhile, the cunning wolf had not given up on his devious plan. He knew a shortcut to reach Grandma's house before Little Red Riding Hood and devised a cunning scheme. He arrived at the grandmother's cottage, knocked on the door, and used his clever wolfish charm to impersonate Little Red Riding Hood. "Who is it?" called Grandma from her cozy bed. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," the wolf replied, doing his best to sound like the sweet little girl. Grandma, who couldn't see very well, was delighted to hear her granddaughter's voice. "Come in, dear. I've been waiting for you." The wolf opened the door, and without wasting a moment, he leaped into Grandma's bed, his eyes gleaming with greed and wickedness. Grandma, however, noticed something strange about her visitor. "My, what big ears you have!" she exclaimed. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," the wolf replied, trying to hide his sharp teeth behind a friendly smile. Grandma peered closer. "And what big eyes you have!" "All the better to see you with, my dear," the wolf responded, his voice trembling with excitement. Grandma was growing increasingly suspicious. "And what big teeth you have!" The wolf could no longer contain his hunger and desire. In a flash, he sprang from the bed, revealing his sharp fangs, and devoured poor Grandma in one gulp. With a wicked grin, he assumed Grandma's appearance, lying in wait for Little Red Riding Hood. Back in the forest, Little Red Riding Hood finally arrived at her grandmother's cottage. She knocked on the door, feeling a little anxious after her encounter with the wolf. "Come in, dear," called the wolf from inside, doing his best to mimic Grandma's voice. Little Red Riding Hood entered the cottage, carrying her basket of goodies. She was surprised to find the room dimly lit, with the curtains drawn. "Grandma, what big ears you have!" she said, echoing her grandmother's words. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," replied the wolf, doing his best to imitate Grandma. "Grandma, what big eyes you have!" Little Red Riding Hood continued, growing even more concerned. "All the better to see you with, my dear," the wolf replied, trying to maintain his disguise. "Grandma, what big teeth you have!" Little Red Riding Hood exclaimed, her fear growing. At this point, the wolf could no longer contain his ravenous hunger. He leaped from the bed, his disguise falling away, revealing his terrifying wolfish form. With a menacing growl, he lunged at Little Red Riding Hood. But Little Red Riding Hood was no helpless girl. She had a brave spirit, and she quickly grabbed a pair of scissors from her basket and held them out in front of her. With determination in her eyes, she shouted, "You won't trick me, you wicked wolf!" The wolf was taken aback by her courage, and he hesitated for just a moment. In that moment, a group of woodcutters who had heard the commotion burst into the cottage. They had been working nearby and had heard Little Red Riding Hood's cries. With their sharp axes, the woodcutters quickly dispatched the wicked wolf, saving Little Red Riding Hood from harm. She was relieved and grateful for their timely arrival. As for Grandma, the woodcutters found her safe and sound, hidden in a closet where she had hidden when the wolf first entered the cottage. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother shared a tearful reunion, and they both thanked the brave woodcutters for their heroic actions. From that day forward, Little Red Riding Hood learned to be even more cautious in the forest and to always heed her mother's advice. She also discovered that she had a strength and bravery within her that she had never known before. The village celebrated the defeat of the wicked wolf, and Little Red Riding Hood became known as a symbol of courage and resilience. She continued to wear her bright red hooded cloak, a reminder of the day she faced her fears and triumphed over evil. And so, the tale of Little Red Riding Hood became a cherished story in the village, passed down from generation to generation, reminding everyone of the importance of wisdom, caution, and the power of courage in the face of danger.